Chapter 31. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Sky whales. Such vast, beautiful skies. With the help of Mother's familiar, a giant white owl, we traveled across the skies. Although it feels cliché to say this, it was definitely a beautiful sight. As we flew higher and higher, I was eventually able to see where we were. From the perspective I currently had, a massive landscape was laid out in front of us. The forests, the mountains, and even our house, it had become tiny, with the latter becoming as tiny as an ant. Wow! Then again, this was a floating continent, so it was so big that I couldn't see the edges of this floating land until we got way, way higher into the skies. Nevertheless, the breeze was truly pleasant, relaxing, soothing even. Plus, there were a lot of places I sighted. Large ruins scattered everywhere, abandoned temples, and massive mountain ranges with peaks that have snow on top of them. We also saw a few large monsters roaming around while traveling. Some of them were enormous birds flying by our side, while some were wyverns. Fortunately, they didn't attack us and instead flew near us before moving past, heading to their own destinations. It was so fun. "Do you like the skies, Sylphie?" my father asked. "I do. I do. Isn't it a beautiful and calming place?" my mother asked soon after. "It is. We should reach the edge of the continent in a few more minutes," Eustace said after that, flapping his wings as he flew even faster. While doing so, he extended them so he could glide through the strong currents around us. Flea awash. At this point, I looked down as I felt a bit dizzy once more. But then, I noticed a large lake, the largest I've ever seen actually. It was surrounded by jungle-like forests where giant elephant-like beasts with 3 trunks peacefully lived. Then, on the other side, I saw a large green lizard chasing down a herd of deer with sharp crystal horns, opening its large jaw as it tried to catch one. Unfortunately for the lizard, its running speed wasn't the greatest compared to the deer. On another part of the lake, I saw a family of wyverns, a lesser species that originated from the clade of dragons. From what I know, they're unintelligent and are considered wild beasts instead of monsters. They differentiate from dragons in that they don't possess a second pair of limbs to make up their wings. Also, their front limbs are their wings, like birds or bats. Across this journey in the skies, I saw at least 5 different species of wyverns, all of them having beautiful and colorful scales. In fact, some had an array of colors on their heads, forming giant crests. Often, the males had the most colorful crests to attract females in courtship rituals. We even saw 2 males battling in the skies while a group of females watched. I think they were battling for mating rights. I guess this month was wyvern mating season. In any case, it was an interesting sight to see, but it wasn't until now that I was left speechless. Groon. A thunderous sound resounded throughout the sea of clouds as I saw a figure slowly emerge from within the vast whiteness. Groon. Gruyun. Groon. They were enormous whales. Oh. Look at that, a family of sky whales, my father told me, pointing at the beasts swimming through the clouds as if it were water. Sky whales were a race of large beasts that lived only in the skies. They had the ability to swim through clouds, and always followed them while traveling across the skies. Their enormous bodies were majestic, each one being as big as an island. Naturally, there were smaller ones as well. Those were the size of a small town. The little sky whale babies floated around their mother, who offered them protection and also nourishment through milk. Surprisingly, we even saw them drinking milk from their mother. The beautiful and enormous sky whale had the resemblance of a normal whale I've seen in fairy tale books from this world. They're said to be mammalian marine creatures of gargantuan sizes who feed on large quantities of small organisms by opening their jaws. Then again, there are also predator whales, powerful and big predators such as killer whales and sperm whales. I wonder if they have sky whale equivalents. There's something particular in these creatures, the back of their bodies are so vast that they grow enormous ecosystems atop them. Plants, animals, birds, and more creatures live in such places, actually. The oldest of sky whales can be as big as a large dot-sized island, and it has been discovered that they harbor whole ecosystems and even people on top of them. Sometimes, tribal races of flying beast kin live on their backs, my mother told me. Ooh. That's a big one. Does it have people? I wondered. It probably has some, but we can't get closer. We would end up taking a detour at that point, Father replied. The large whale sang a bit more as it began to delve deeper into the sea of clouds. Suddenly, a large mass of black clouds emerged before us. Seeing that, the whales entered it, and soon, we lost sight of them. Are they going to be okay there? I asked. Yes, they prefer black clouds as they protect them more from predators. Although it might bring a bit of calamity to those that live on their backs, Mother told me. We used to once travel over these moving islands. There were special dungeons left by the gods and ancient civilizations in the oldest of the sky whales, where we found powerful ancient artifacts and weapons to aid us in our journey, Father could not help but say. Oh. You must have had a lot of fun back then. Well, we did, but there were also many dangers, Mother replied, chuckling as she seemed to recall the past. Yeah, in our first attempt to get on a sky whale, we almost didn't make it. We tried getting on one by merely using our novice flying spells. In exchange, we ended up being blown away by the pressuring winds they produced to float in midair. We were blown away into the skies several times until we finally managed to get on top of them, Father told me. On that day, Nephiline had emptied her stomach by throwing up so much. Ha ha ha. As Father narrated the story to me, Mother could not help but laugh. Oh, I guess you didn't have Eustace back then. I asked. No, they recruited me way later. But since I was recruited, I've become their flying transport. Sigh. I guess the owl didn't seem to like his role too much. Ah, we're getting close, he said as I was able to take a glimpse. Unexpectedly, it was the edge of this floating continent. Chapter 32. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The continents of the world. Claudia was a floating continent. Therefore, no matter how vast it could be, it had to have an edge to it, where one would drop off and descend onto the world's surface. And eventually, we saw it. The edge of this continent was covered in waterfalls from the rivers coming from the dozens of mountain ranges we saw past this point. The gigantic waterfalls bathed the world below with this fresh water. Though, I wonder if it actually stopped at land or fell into the oceans below. If this floating continent were to be floating above land, the water might end up forming even more rivers down below. Even a massive lake that divided into rivers wasn't impossible. Of course, that's only if the floating continent doesn't move from its original position, which I'm not even sure if it does in the first place. In any case, this beautiful scenario is worth more than anything in this world. I am truly blessed to be able to see such beauty. In fact, I've begun to think I was very lucky to have such a beautiful second life. Even if I was considered a mistake by that god or something, this sight in front of me makes it all worth it. And well, my beloved parents as well, naturally. Phoo. Naturia suddenly emerged from my soul, floating around me as she admired the beautiful sight with me. These are the divine waterfalls. The purest water in the entire world descends from this continent down below, Mother explained. This water is a blessing. The continent of Claudia moves around the entire world in intervals. But usually, it always gets attracted to places where energy is lacking and the land is dying, such as dried and deserted lands. These places are flooded by these waterfalls for a few days as the continent passes by them, nourishing the place, Father continued where she left off. Bua. So this continent helps the surface. Pretty much. It doesn't stay here doing nothing. It emanates a strong divine energy that nourishes the land below and helps the people and living beings prosper, Mother replied. I see. And it was made by the gods. Isn't this helping the world? If so, why does the world hates the gods and humanity? I wondered. That's a complicated question, Father said, letting out a sigh. We better not talk about such things, dear. I don't think you're ready yet, Mother added. Ready? What do they mean by ready? Plus, it's not even that complicated. Ah well. Then again, I'm still a 1-year-old, so I guess it might seem complicated to someone like me. After we went through the beautiful waterfalls, we headed down below. We were bathed by a bit of water while reaching the surface. Surprisingly, the waterfalls were strong. Even if we were far away from them, the wind made the water flow around, making the waterfall more like rain than an actual big waterfall. I suppose that because it's like rain and not a giant waterfall falling over these lands that it doesn't cause disasters on the surface. When we got through the ocean of clouds, we eventually greeted the vast expanse beyond the continent. And oh boy was it beautiful. The first thing that greeted our sight was a vast landscape of grasslands, forests, lakes, rivers, and more mountains. Now that I look at it for a bit more, it looked way smaller than in the continent. Apparently, everything there was massive. But in here, there were certain areas that were not as rich in vegetation. Nevertheless, the rain from the continent was nourishing everything. Ah, so we're closer this time around. The continent has been floating around the continent of Galatia, Mother said all of a sudden. Galatia? I asked. There are 4 continents in this world, dear. Galatia is one of the biggest ones there is, where most of the humans live on, Mother replied. So. We're in the human continent. I asked. You could phrase it that way, Mother said with a chuckle. The Amazon live on this continent as well, but in the wildlands to the north. That's where most of the human civilizations don't exist, Father told me. What about the other 3 continents? I asked after that. There's the demon continent, where demons and monsters originate. That continent was made from the corpse of the first demon king, Mother answered. After that is the Erebern continent, a wildland with a vast variety of beastkin and other demi-human races. Humans also live there, but those lands belong to dem-humans, Father said, continuing where Mother left off. And then, there's the fantastical continent of Atlanta. It's a land of wonders where many advanced magic civilizations live. It's also a place where the gods once lived, but it's now occupied by a vast mixed group of races from all across the world. In fact, we elves are one of the few natural inhabitants there. Speaking of which, we possess vast lands on that continent which we govern, Mother concluded. Ooh. Will I get to govern one? I asked. Well, you are my daughter so you could technically own any land you wanted if I asked around. But I don't think you should think about such things. It's quite difficult to govern a piece of land, Mother told me. Anyways, we're currently in Galatia. This is often called the human supremacy continent by the other 2 continents. Although there are a few kingdoms and nations that don't discriminate against the demi-human races, the majority do. Also, they used to do slavery, my father said. But in our younger years we abolished slavery in multiple kingdoms. Then again, now that we haven't moved down here in a while, I don't know how things might have progressed, Mother added. I see. It must have been hard back then. I guess. Well, that's the past for you. Eustace, hurry up. Mother could not help but let out a sigh after this. Ah, sure. Hearing Mother's order, the giant owl suddenly coated himself in flashing light, as he started to move incredibly fast, resembling a flash of white light. I think we traveled kilometers in just minutes. In any case, we were getting closer and closer to the Amazon's home. After waiting for a week, I can finally see Aquarina again, as well as her parents Shade and Nephilim. It's going to be a lot of fun for sure. I can't wait. Troom. However, before we could even get close, the owl suddenly stopped in midair as a strong presence emerged before us. What's that? I asked. The being was clad in black armor, his head that of a skull. A death. Attribute familiar, my mother could not help but blurt out. What's something like this doing here? Wait. This is. A demon king remnants familiar, father muttered in surprise. Kakaka. I found you. Chapter 33. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Curse. An entity appeared before our path, making the giant owl abruptly stop its flight as it flapped his wings in the middle of the skies. The being before us wasn't gigantic, nor was it grotesque like Beelzebub. However, it emanated such a strong deathly presence, to the point that it felt like a hand was grasping my small heart and was squeezing at it. I felt as if the air of my lungs disappeared in an instant, with dread being the only thing that took over my consciousness. My entire body began to tremble in fear. I don't know why, but my eyes couldn't even blink as I looked at this entity. It was just a skeleton. In fact, I've even seen skeletons before. But this skeleton. Its presence was probably just as imposing as Beelzebub. But because I was seeing it from close up, it was turning me insane. My hands began to tremble as I felt the heat of my body disappear. My eyes almost began to sink into my eye sockets as my lips were trembling. I began to release cold air out of my mouth. At this point, I felt like I was running out of air, as if I was drowning into some sort of abyssal malice. It was as if my very being was being dragged into eternal darkness. What is this? Is this what my parents always had to fight? It feels hopeless. Completely hopeless. I'm going to die. I'm going to die. Sylphie, resist. Suddenly, my mother woke me up from my daze as the abyssal darkness suddenly dissipated. Soon, the warmth of her holy light encompassed my entire body. The abyssal darkness and the utter fear that almost took over me disappeared, but it quickly came back when I looked at the being in front of us once more. Kakaka. What a lovely child you got there, it said creepily. The skeleton was completely white, covered in dark, spiky armor. Human faces that were howling in agony adorned the surface of the armor it wore. It wielded a blade, a large black blade on its right hand. On top of that, it emanated a dark and deathly presence, its eye sockets glowing with crimson red light. A death. Attribute undead familiar. You're a nether death overlord, aren't you? My mother muttered, gritting her teeth as her domain expanded across the skies. My father quickly jumped off the owl as gigantic blazing wings emerged from his back, flapping as it aided him in moving at high altitude. Flash! I'll finish it off, he roared as the skeleton looked at him leisurely. Wait. Why is it so relaxed? Isn't my father strong? Boom! My father released a storm of flames towards the skeleton. In response, the skeleton covered itself in a barrier of darkness. Surprisingly, the fire was completely useless against it. Clash! 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 After that, the two began to clash against one another in the skies, while my mother fired holy light arrows at the skeleton from afar. The skeleton was able to deflect them easily while it was fighting against father. On top of that, its demonic black blade was pushing him down. Ung! My father groaned. The skeleton showed off an amazing usage of the blade as his sword began to pierce through his defenses and break his fiery armor that coated his body. My father continued to fight and intercept it, releasing explosive firestorms every second with each slash of his blade. Boom! 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 However, the skeleton's soul continued to emanate such a powerful yet deathly presence. It was so strong that it began to consume father's flames. Flayus! This power. It can't be, muttered my father in disbelief. Oh, yes. It can be, replied the skeleton, rushing towards my father. It destroyed any type of attack he sent at it as if his blade negated any kind of element. Clash. Boom. Slash. Flash. Rhea. My father roared fiercely as his entire body turned into flames. Soon, gigantic claws appeared from within his body as they began to shroud the skeleton with explosive bombardments of flames, flames so strong they could turn anything into ashes. Yet. Clash. 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 Ungag. The skeleton flashed like a black ray of light near my father, as his attacks turned into nothing against it. Its blade then reached his stomach, with the gigantic demon blade piercing through it like a hot knife through butter. My father vomited blood as his eyes were filled with despair. Gah. No. N.N.O. This can't be real. Die, hero. Sil.PHYSLASSSH. The skeleton then cut my father's entire body in two as my father's eyes looked at me for the last time. At that moment, my entire world turned upside down. No. No. My mom roared angrily as several flashes of light came from her domain, reaching the skeleton from all sides. Klaesh. Ha ha ha. It's useless, said the skeleton, flashing towards us as it suddenly collided with a barrier of light. Clash. My mother pointed her open palms at the barrier while gritting her teeth, her eyes glowing with bright gold light. Alan, she muttered, generating a gigantic amount of holy light from within her body before releasing it in one go. It resembled the reincarnation of the sun's light. Flash. Boom. The flashing beam soon reached the skeleton, quickly reaching it. It was sent flying into the skies, groaning even. Ungagag. Such holy power. But. Sloslish. However, its blade cut through holy light itself, generating a dark shockwave that clashed with the barrier with immense strength. Crash. At that moment, the entire barrier broke apart as mother gritted her teeth and generated a holy light, quickly covering me. After that, she threw me down. Live, Sylphie. Ah. No. Flayawash. The dark light reached mother as she fought with everything she had. However, the blade suddenly slashed through her body, and her head was cut off. Blood started to gush out of her neck as my eyes began to cry sorrowful tears. My entire heart was broken into pieces as my world was fragmented into nothingness. The owl suddenly flashed with bright light and exploded, aiming to kill the skeleton. Unfortunately, amidst the smoke, it still lived. With none opposing it, it flew towards me faster than I was falling. Future hero, I cannot let you live, it said. Its blade then reached me as something sharp pierced through my body. Horrendous pain soon took a hold of my entire being. Slash. The darkness quickly devoured my tiny body as I was sliced in half. I died. Chapter 34. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Visions. A tremendous pain in my soul suddenly woke me up. The visions I saw, the imagery I saw. I looked around me as I saw the skeleton struggle against father. His blade was not only stronger compared to the skeleton, but his flames were even burning through the skeleton's armor, consuming its magic. Sometime later, he summoned a gigantic phoenix that cried loudly. It then looked at me for a split second before resuming battle. The phoenix flames then began to explosively consume the entire surroundings as the skeleton's darkness began to be consumed. After that, father coated himself in divine power as his blade slashed through the skeleton. My mother suddenly summoned her two other familiars, the eye with wings and what seemed to be a beautiful crane. Both of them assisted father with healing as the skeleton began to be consumed by father's flames. Ka. The skeleton groaned in agony as its entire body exploded into pieces. Unfortunately for the skeleton, my father suddenly extended his blazing soul from within his body, clutching onto the phantasmal soul of the skeleton. "I won't let you go back to your master," he roared fiercely. At this moment, his entire demeanor was that of a tyrannical warlord. Grya-agag. The skeleton's soul cried in agony as it was burned alive by the purifying flames of Father, turning into nothingness. It died. But... what did I see back then? What was that? Ha! Ha! Sylphie, hang on. I heard the tender voice of my mother. I was so thankful she was alive. Sylphie. My father's voice resounded soon after as I felt his warmth encompass me. Father. He's not dead. He's here. I'm so glad. They're the most important treasures of my life. Eventually, the darkness pulled me back into unconsciousness as I fell asleep. I began to slowly wake up. Once I was somewhat conscious, I noticed that my body was resting over a bed. After some time, I opened my eyes as the interior of a tent greeted me. The tent was made of beautiful leather decorated with many paintings. It looked tribal and rustic in my eyes. Complementing that were several pieces of furniture roughly made out of wood all around me, as well as a lot of little wooden toys. In fact, there was a little doll made of wood resembling Aquarina, with long silvery white hair and a blue dress. Where am I right now? I looked around as someone slowly entered the tent. Sylphie, when will you wake up? Ah! Sylphie. Suddenly, Aquarina entered the tent and rushed towards me, hugging me tightly. Aquarina. Sylphie. Are you okay? Aquarina tenderly hugged me, rubbing her cute little face over my chest. In response, I caressed her soft and long hair as her head had the scent of sweet flowers. I'm fine. She was so warm. On the other hand, for some reason, I was strangely cold. Really? She asked. Yes. What happened? Where are my parents? I asked. Your parents were here just a minute ago. They're currently eating, she replied. I see. What happened to me? You know. It seems we arrived here. I sighed in relief, resting over the bed while Aquarina cuddled me. Auntie Phelan and Uncle Alan told me you were hit with a curse spell provoked by the mere presence of a familiar. Fortunately, you got through it thanks to your mom's healing, Aquarina told me. It was hard for her to articulate so many complicated words, but she was surprisingly good at talking at such a young age. It was all a curse. So, it was all a curse. Ha! My heart still hurts. It seems that I was affected by some kind of curse spell thanks to me glaring at the skeleton for too long. Mother had covered my eyes before I could look at it for too long. Unfortunately, the spell had already taken effect at that point. Aquarina then told me my mother healed me right away, but the few seconds I was trapped within this curse, I saw a horrible vision of everyone dying miserably, including me. She told me this familiar had this type of power, given the ability to show horrible nightmares to disrupt a person's mind before killing them. Thankfully, my father destroyed it at long last. Sadly, the master of this familiar is still unknown. Ha! I felt so horrible while experiencing that. I really thought it was hopeless. I really thought my parents had died horrendously. I'm so glad they're strong. But even then, there's always a bigger fish, isn't there? With that in mind, this makes me ponder that even with their current strength, there could be something, somewhere, that could threaten their lives and kill them as easily as that thing in the nightmare did. And that thought terrifies me a lot. Maybe if we were simply farmers, we wouldn't be worried about being chased down by these monstrous beings. But the mark of a hero forces my parents to be persecuted by these demonic beings. And they probably see me, their child, as a future hero of sorts. Those demons probably want to kill me as well. I've been living my life so peacefully through this year yet. It feels so hard to think about the future when I begin to think what kind of monsters might come after us. You know. I don't even care if I were to die again. I've already died once. But I love my parents so much already. I don't want to see them die a futile death. It hurt me more to see them horrendously slaughtered than dying myself. Calm down. Mom said that when we feel bad, we have to think about those we love. Aquarina said all of a sudden. She was trying very hard to make me feel better. She's such a treasure. Thank you. I said, letting out a sigh soon after. At some point, my parents suddenly entered the tent while Aquarina was petting my head, holding my hands tightly to calm down my sorrow. Sylphie. The two hugged me from each side and kissed me a lot. They squeezed Aquarina in between the sandwich. I'm so glad you're alive. I had such a horrendous nightmare. Sniff. I love you. I love you too so much. Sniff. Oh, Sylphie. We'll always be there for you. Embraced in the tender hug of my parents and Aquarina, I felt a bit better. However, a blazing resolve like never before began to emerge in my heart, so strong and enormous that it began to encompass my entire body, filling it with warmth. I will become the strongest. To protect all those that I care for. Okay, that definitely sounded weird. I better never say it out loud. Chapter 35. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Growing stronger. Is not easy. I've been trying to grow stronger every day since I was born. Unfortunately, exhaustion always gets the better of me and I am forced to stop. Nevertheless, practicing each day has definitely made me more proficient in the abilities I possess. Then again, how can I accelerate this process? Seeing how this world is filled with dangers, and how the world itself seems to just want to get rid of us even without the Demon King present anymore, I'm getting the urge to grow stronger. I don't think I can simply live under my parents' strength throughout my entire life. If possible, I would like to become as strong as them someday, if not stronger. Practicing mana usage, ember, and agriculture every single day until I grow too exhausted to even move anymore is the norm for me. On top of that, I'm also doing as many physical exercises as I possibly can with this 1-year-old body. I might be in an urge to grow stronger, but at the end of the day, I'm still limited by what I can do. In any case, thanks to Naturia, I'm able to possess a higher stamina than what someone at my age would normally have. It felt as if my very soul grew a bit bigger by making a contract with this little nature-type spirit. As the system had told me before, the exhaustion not only came from a small baby body, but from my very soul. It seems that the more familiars one formed a contract with, the stronger or bigger the soul might become as one shared a soul bond with their familiars. Therefore, what I shall call from now on as soul fatigue, becomes less prominent, while soul stamina, a term I shall also coin, grows larger. If I originally had 10 soul stamina before, after forming a contract with Naturia, I probably have around 30 now. In other words, I can work 3 times longer than before thanks to her. By channeling her power and infusing her into my soul, I can work even harder. However, it's still not enough. I require more familiars. With that, it's quite a shame that they're hard to come by, add on the fact that it's even harder to find someone fitting to become a familiar. I can't just pick a random beast either, that won't give me anything useful. Naturia, despite being a young spirit, is already very special. If push comes to shove and I have to pick a beast or a monster as a familiar, then there's no doubt that it has to be a strong creature. And with that in mind, that moves me back to Ignatius, my dear dragon friend. I really enjoyed his meat, and I bathed in his blood as well. The pendant made with his magic crystal greatly enhances my fire magic as well, but now I really want his soul to become my friend. If Naturia tripled my soul stamina, how much could Ignatius give me if I formed a contract with this guy? Wouldn't it be amazing? Although this is just pure speculation, there's a possibility that forming a contract would increase it from 30 to 100. Perhaps even more, I may never know. Due to this, I really require the help of this dork. But he's still unwilling to aid me in my cause. I have to keep confronting him relentlessly each night and force him to cooperate. I have to simply train my will while using my astral projection inside of his soulscape. It seems I have to force him to obey me. He's too unwilling and hates humans. Plus, it seems like the Dragon King, his father, was also tasked by the world itself to kill heroes and humans, so I guess he inherited that desire. Due to this, it seems like it's impossible to cooperate with him or convince him no matter what. With that in mind, I have to get tyrannical and simply force him to cooperate. I have to punch his astral projection in the guts, kick him in the balls, detach his wings, bite his neck, or something. Astral projections do feel pain, so I can abuse that part. Then again, seeing how he's an ancient dragon and all that, he might be very resilient towards pain. Moving all of that aside, after I woke up, I ended up spending most of the day inside the tent resting while my parents brought me food. In fact, both stayed with me while eating too. Surprisingly, Nephiline and Shade came along with Aquarina as we all shared dinner together. The food of the Amazon tribe was unique. There were things I had never tasted before, such as preparations with spicy and sweet sauces, grilled and salted fish, as well as special types of bread that were colorful and had all kinds of seeds on them. There were also things they called tortillas, made of corn flour and other seeds, which were like thin bread slices you could wrap around things. By filling them with delicious meat, vegetables, and strong flavored sauces before wrapping them up into a package, one could enjoy all the delicious flavors at once. Yuwa, what a bliss! Even the little Aquarina ate her tortillas happily. The fact that I got to taste the food of other cultures really made me happy. Also, there was a certain fruit that was colored green. It was extremely creamy, with a hint of oiliness to it that stuck to my mouth, called an avocado. It had a black and rough outer layer to it, but in contrast, the inside had this creamy and oily texture. By grinding it and adding some tomatoes and salt, as well as a bit of a spicy kick, they went amazingly well with the tortillas alongside grilled meat cut into thin slices. I enjoyed these meals thoroughly. For some reason, my parents and Aquarina's parents were surprised by how much I ate. Eating the dragon really enhanced my metabolism, so even as a 1-year-old, I was able to eat a lot, perhaps as much as a grown adult. Even spicy things didn't affect my stomach at all. I guess I also gained an iron stomach from eating the dragon. Sometime later, my parents explained to them that it was perhaps due to me having eaten a dragon. Only with that did Nephiline and Shade finally understand why I ate so much. Apparently, Aquarina had yet to eat such a mythical being to boost her foundation, but my parents had saved a lot of dragon meat inside a special dimensional leather bag where the meat was maintained perfectly. In other words, Aquarina was most likely going to get her own dragon feast and dragon blood bath soon. She was unaware of this, though. She continued to eat her meals, as oblivious as she might be. Chapter 36. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Time to explore. It has been half a week, 4 days, since we arrived at the Amazon tribe, and oh boy, has it been filled with many new things to see and explore. Unfortunately, my parents didn't let me do everything I wanted to. After the first day of eating, I woke up quite early in the morning as I began to wander around the tent. In the end, I ultimately sneaked outside while my parents were nowhere to be seen. At the very moment I went outside, the first thing that greeted my sight was a beautiful village. It seemed that the Amazon tribe had settled down in the middle of a large grassy plain that was surrounded by mountains and jungles. There were 2 rivers coming from the south and north, as well as a large lake that I was able to see from very far away. A few tents were actually set there. It seems that people would fish there from time to time. Nevertheless, the village was enormous. I couldn't count all of the tents, but I was sure that there were over 200 of them. On top of that, each tent had at least 4 family members. Man, Amazon families are massive. Unlike what I first thought, the Amazon tribe had both men and women, and are not a race that was only composed of women. Now that I think about this, why did I think of this in the first place? Well, in my previous life, Amazons existed as well, but as tales. I could still recall that my parents in my previous life told me a tale of a man stranded in an island where a large tribe of only strong women lived. It was mostly a tale to tell young girls that they could also grow as strong as men, and I appreciated it a lot. My father wasn't at all a stereotypical man that only wanted women to serve men. In fact, both of them in my previous life worked hard on the farm fields. Both of them even cooked together, sharing each other's tasks unlike some other families I remember seeing back then. That I suppose it's because he had 2 girls, he was afraid that men would take advantage of us if we didn't grow strong both physically and mentally. Anyways, Amazons in this world apparently exist and are not just a mere tale. Or perhaps this is just a mere coincidence. In any case, there were both men and women, and that was that. They were quite different from the human race that my father originated from, who was small and white-skinned in comparison, alongside Shade. Nephiline and her Amazon tribe were all chocolate-skinned. Their skin was glossy and beautiful. From the looks of it, their skin had clearly adapted to the harsh and hot weathers of these jungles. White skin such as mine would easily get burned by the sun, but their chocolate skin was very resistant to it. Another thing that was unique to them was that they all grew to be rather tall. On top of that, most of the adult population were all packed with muscles, being amazing warriors, hunters, and gatherers. They were a race of people incredibly well suited to live in the wild in these conditions. Due to the hot conditions of this place, they mostly wore similar clothes to Nephiline. They're tribal in style and are beautifully decorated with different colors, ranging from red, yellow, blue, and green. However, they barely cover their bodies, if not at all. Males were all bare-chested, with only some covering their backs and shoulders with beautiful leather and monster bones. On the other hand, females cover their chests and their nether regions. Males usually wore pants and not loincloths as some would think. Then again, their pants were more akin to shorts rather than actual pants. On top of that, all of them were barefoot. Their feet are surprisingly clean despite walking over the grass with them. The skin at their feet must be rough and thick. After all, I haven't seen anyone's feet covered in scars so far. All in all, they're a naturally strong race. From a young age, they play around kicking large balls made of rock that could easily crush a kid's feet their age. In contrast, their feet would be unscathed as they would continue to kick these rocks of at least a few kilograms like nothing. The entire village was made up of tents, but there were some small towers made out of bones and wood for the guards to look from afar if any monster tide or wild beasts dare to come closer. Speaking of which, they're pseudo-nomadic, moving every few years from one place to another around the jungle, often following where the beasts and monsters move through the year. This way, they don't exhaust the natural resources around the areas they occupied. On the second day of being here, I mostly walked around. The people looked at me weirdly as they didn't know who I was. For some reason, I felt a bit overwhelmed. Then again, having so many people looking at them out of nowhere would normally make someone feel pressured. I was even asked by some people while I was walking if I had gotten lost in the jungle and arrived here. In response, I told them that I was the daughter of the heroes, and then my parents soon found me. After that, the misunderstandings were quickly resolved. Nonetheless, people from the outside were a rarity in here. However, Aquarina was well known around the entire village, so for the next couple of days, I went with her, and things became easier to handle. While walking around with her, I found out that she didn't have any friends yet due to how young she was and the little interactions with other kids she had, so I was pretty much her first friend. Under the supervision of our parents, we walked around the village as we simply wandered these past few days. Of course, I didn't forget to practice my magic and exercise as much as I possibly could each morning. While I was doing all of that, Aquarina watched me with curious eyes, to the point she once tried to imitate me. Unfortunately, she failed miserably and ended up becoming very physically exhausted. After 4 days of being here, however, Aquarina had finally taken her dragon ritual yesterday, with a full feast of dragon meat. Also, she was bathed in blood while she was sleeping. So, today morning, she began to experiment with her newfound strength as we were allowed to move to a small wild patch of jungle with some small creatures roaming in the area. Of course, there was a large eyeball with wings following us while hiding itself, alongside a shadowy crow. It's no surprise our parents were still looking over us. We were 1-year-olds, after all. In any case, we decided to enjoy this little adventure. Chapter 37. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The Spirit Stone. Now that I think about it, it's already surprising that our parents would allow us to go off on a little adventure together, so I suppose I should have assumed that they would be looking over us constantly. Of course, I get the reasoning behind it. Even if this entire area was being protected by a powerful barrier created by Nephilim and shade, it was still a wild area where monsters and beasts constantly appeared. I imagine that something like an adventure guild my parents had occasionally spoken in the past to be in here, but there was no such thing like that, nor was there any place where they paid you or gave you a reward for hunting monsters or gathering rare herbs. I guess I should have assumed that as well. After all, I was in a tribe. It's completely disconnected from other human societies. In any case, this little patch of wilderness was near the tribe's north area, where there was a river nearby. We crossed it by jumping over the stones set in the middle of it, with Aquarina held my hand tightly as she led me around all the while. She seemed to have come here before. Here's a nice place. Where birds come to sing. We entered the jungle around us as we were immediately greeted by a beautiful sight. Enormous trees pointing upwards that had canopies covering a large amount of the sun's rays, a humid atmosphere, as well as the strong scent of plants and rich, fresh soil. Not to mention the fact that there were large rocks lying around in what seemed to be a road in the middle of this place. On top of that, each rock had decorations and paintings on them, with moss growing all over them. Aquarina, are you sure you want to walk a bit more? I asked. Yeah. It's there, she replied cutely, pointing at a small area where there were no trees, only grass. Surprisingly, the area she pointed at was a patch in the middle of the jungle where the sun directly hit the ground. There was a large stone in the ground there, resembling a monolith. It was engraved with multiple runic paintings. On top of that, there were even what seemed to be magic circles on it. I suddenly felt a strange spiritual energy coming directly from this stone, as if the senses I shared with Naturia had alerted me of this strong energy. This stone is called the Spirit Stone. It's a special stone where spirits come, she told me. Oh. Is that so? I can feel that there's a lot of spiritual energy around it. Can you feel it too? I asked. Yeah. It feels comfortable here. Sometimes my head hurts because there's too many people. But here I can be at peace, she replied. Since she was an actual 1-year-old, unlike me who already has a mature soul, she has a hard time forming her sentences. With that in mind, I patiently waited for her to finish her words. Apparently, Aquarina's ability to detect the intentions of beings can also extend over a wide range. Due to being in the middle of a massive tribe, such an ability made it difficult for her to concentrate when there were so many people with different emotions and intentions everywhere. I've been told by Nephilim some time ago that she used to cry while she was younger due to how her head hurt so much because she constantly sensed the emotions of so many people. Thus, she often brought her here to heal her and calm her down. Since then, this little place had become her favorite place to come play around with her parents. She usually never came alone, but they let her come with me. Then again, her father's familiar and my mother's familiar were watching over us, so they're not really gone from a certain perspective. Now that I think about it, she has been holding my hand all this time and hasn't even separated it from mine. Because of this, I have to walk wherever she goes. After some time, she began to walk around the stone with a cute smile and began to hug it and touch it. Touch it, Sylphie. It will make you feel good, she told me. Is that so? Is this stone like a drug or something? With a hint of hesitation, I extended my hand towards the large, almost 10-meter tall stone. At the very moment I touched it, a stream of multiple energies quickly entered my body. Flash. Wag. I fell on my butt from the sudden shock. That amount of energy was entering my soul way too quickly. It felt strange, to say the least. Sylphie, are you okay? Asked Aquarina, alarmed that I fell on the ground quite stupidly. Why? Yeah, I'm fine, I think. I just got a bit surprised there. It gave me a lot of energy. Do you usually take all of it? I asked. Energy. Oh. That's just the spiritual essence. It feels a bit strange at first, but after it bathes your body, you feel nice and light, she replied. How odd, perhaps I'll get used to it if I let it flow all throughout my body. Then again, what's the purpose of this stone? Where does it even come from? With a bit more confidence, I touched the stone once more as the shock of spiritual energy washed my body yet again. I gritted my teeth as I felt this foreign essence rush across every vein of my body. It felt utterly strange. It even gave me a bit of nausea. However, everything quickly faded away after enduring it for a few seconds. For some reason, I feel like the energy had fully opened something inside me. I think they call these mana veins. From what I know, mana veins are special veins in the body that form when a person regularly practices magic. I've been practicing every day, yet I have barely opened them up. Well, it's mostly because I'm a child, and they're only ready to be opened and developed once one is around 10 years old. With that in mind, this spirit stone is amazing. It just opened them all prematurely for me, as if I had unlocked a bit more of my potential. See? It's not that bad. Aquarina said while smiling cutely. Her shiny white teeth were very pretty. Yeah, I see. I glanced at the spirit stone as I suddenly noticed several glowing spheres moving around it. Could those be spirits? Chirp, chirp. Sometime later, several birds began to sing out of nowhere as they all gathered around us. From what I could see, these birds took on all sorts of colors. Some resembled parrots, while others resembled like eagles or ravens. In any case, they were all incredibly colorful. Ah, the birds. They're singing. Chapter 38. You are listening at novelfull.audio. A wild monster appears. Aquarina, do you know where this spirit stone comes from? I asked. Mommy told me it was a gift from the gods. Aquarina replied. I see. A gift from the gods. Did the gods just drop a giant stone with spirit energy in the middle of the jungle? Then again, there's no point mulling over something I can't delve deeper into. After a while, as the birds started to fly away, I noticed a few fluff balls slowly jump around the stone. Eventually, they noticed us. They resembled brown and black hares, but they also had a sharp crystal horn on their foreheads, big enough to impale an adult man. Although their size was small, I bet they could jump over a person and kill them in one hit. Of course, that couldn't be said for the tribespeople. They're too strong for that. Look. Are those monsters? I asked. Oh. Ah. Those are horned hares. Mommy said they're F.rank monsters, she replied. I see. Maybe we could hunt some for dinner. I suggested. Hunt, but it's dangerous. Maybe we should go back home. As she said that, Aquarina began to step back, only for one of the large hares to notice us. Its crimson-red eyes soon flashed with bloodthirst as the big eared mammal charged at us while pointing its horn forward. Wait. You're telling me these cute things are actually this aggressive? Or is it because they're territorial? Then again, if you have a massive horn like that, I wouldn't be surprised if you wanted to use it. Yua. With the large hare charging towards us, Aquarina felt intimidated as she fell on her butt. Seeing that, I let go of her hand as I moved in front of her. Ember, 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 ember. I conjured ember a dozen of times in a few seconds. Before the rabbit's horn could even touch me, a large fireball emerged from the fusion of so many little flames, clashing with the rabbit head. On. Clash. Gryag. A pitiful cry was released by the horned hare as it fell over the ground. The entirety of its fur was set ablaze as it began to cry in agony on the ground until it eventually breathed its last. Wow! Aquarina looked at me with awe as her blue eyes glistened brightly. See? It wasn't so hard to beat. I told her. Sylphie, you're strong, she could not help but say, as if admiring me. Not really. I'm just a kid, I said, letting out a light sigh. But that was cool, she said in response to my words. Is that so? Well, let's hunt some more. Do you know any magic, Aquarina? I asked. Hunt, me, she wondered. Yeah, you have to learn how to hunt one day, right? You have to make sure you can feed yourself in the future. Your parents won't be there for you all your life, you know. I told her. I know some magic. Mommy taught me aqua bullet, she replied. Aqua bullet. It's like this. With that, Aquarina pointed her finger onto a faraway hare who was looking at its burning friend in shock. Soon, a sudden mass of water no bigger than a pebble was fired from her pointed finger in an instant. She didn't even chant it, nor did any magic circle emerge. Bang! The bullet of water quickly reached the hare's stomach, making it screech in pain before falling to the ground motionlessly. Oh! Aquarina muttered. From the looks of it, even she was shocked. Ha! You're also pretty strong, Aquarina. I could not help but exclaim. Did I do that, she wondered. She still couldn't believe it. Yeah, you sure did. Now let's bring them back home so we can make stew out of them. I told her. Okay, with that, we quickly rushed towards the hares. I grabbed mine while Aquarina moved towards the one she killed. However. Splash! Out of nowhere, the nearby forest trembled as a large figure, a creature larger than the hares by at least 10 times, jumped out of it. Grow! It was a leopard. No, wait. It had black fur. A panther, perhaps. It was around 3 meters tall, completely dwarfing both of us in stature. Ah! Aquarina was suddenly shocked by the sight. The leopard's sharp emerald eyes glared at her profoundly as it slowly began to move near her. Aquarina. I rushed towards her as fast as I could, infusing mana into my newly opened mana veins. Unfortunately, the leopard was already way too close to her while she was paralyzed out of shock. Growl! The panther's claws emerged from its paws as it lunged towards her. No! I cried as loudly as I could, quickly deciding to touch the grass. Soon, my will was infused into the plants as my endless mana began to be poured into them like a fervent stream of essence. The grass in the area then obeyed my will as they grew faster than the speed at which Panther was heading towards Aquarina. Thankfully, the tentacle-like grass grabbed onto its hind legs at the very last moment and pulled it down into the ground. Foo! Naturia then appeared around me, aiding me in using agriculture to reach this level of power. After that, I reached Aquarina in time once more as I glared at the roaring panther. At this point, it began to cut through the grass angrily, hissing at me in the process. Aquarina. Snap out of it. Come, fire your aqua bullet at it and kill it. It tried to eat you. I told her. Right. Hearing my words, Aquarina snapped out of her shock, gulping her saliva as she pointed her finger at the struggling panther, firing 5 aqua bullets in quick succession towards it. Bang! Bang! Growl! The panther's body was quickly filled with holes, soon bleeding everywhere. Nevertheless, it was still alive. It then began to breathe heavily as it looked at both of us. Its sharp emerald eyes seemed to contain defiance in them. It hasn't died yet? Aquarina timidly asked. Calm down. It's on death's door. It's quite resilient, I told her. Aquarina looked at the panther pitifully, letting out a sigh soon after. Poor thing. You're pitying it? I asked. Maybe it was hungry, she told me, lightly sighing. Oh. But even then, you can't just pity something that tried to kill you, Aquarina. Your life is just as valuable as theirs. In other words, you have the right to fight and survive as well, I said in response. That's so, muttered Aquarina before suddenly touching the panther. Growling, the panther groaned at her, only for it to close its eyes soon after. Eventually, it stopped breathing. Phew. Well, let's bring it back home. Maybe we can also cook it, huh? I asked. Okay, with that, Aquarina wiped off the small tears she had in her eyes and nodded. Man, what a strong girl. Chapter 39. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Overly protective parents Shade and Nephilim were currently watching the girls while they fought against the black leopard through the eyes of spirits. Shade could not help but let out a sigh of relief after he saw the 2 girls kill the creature rather quickly. It seems the girls did it alone. Sylphie is incredible. She has matured a lot for a young girl at 1 year of age. Indeed. I can already see her be a good friend of Aquarina. They've only met for a few days, but they're already like sisters. I'm so happy for our daughter. Indeed. I suppose it wasn't necessary for my crow to do anything. Oh well. Then again, Aquarina and Sylph are both protected through enchantments and barriers, it's just they can't just see them. Yeah. If that panther had gotten any closer to them, it would have ended up hitting a magical barrier rather than getting to eat. Ha ha ha. Moving that aside, I'm quite impressed that Sylph encouraged Aquarina. Also, she seems to be able to use not only nature magic but also fire magic. Speaking of which, our girl has barely awakened her water attribute magic. It seems those 2 have been training their girl since she was born or something. Maybe they should give her a break. Maybe we should also help Aquarina practice more. Even at this day and age, the world is a dangerous place. I suppose you're right. After we came back from the wilderness carrying the 2 hares and the panther, we received the glares of most of the tribal members that we came across. They looked at us with surprise and awe as we carried the massive corpse of this leopard. Young girls, you defeated that creature. Incredible. Aren't they like 1-year-old? Those are the daughters of the heroes. Ah. Even at 1-year-old, they're strong enough to hunt. Is that Aquarina? Wow. Hearing their words of surprise, we decided to ignore them as we slowly made our way back. Normally, one would think that 1-year-old girls would never be able to carry a massive panther. However, one must remember that we both ate dragon and were bathed in its blood. Thanks to it, our strength had grown to incredibly high levels. Although it's nothing outstanding at the age of 1, I think it's good that we're capable of carrying these corpses without many difficulties. As we made our way back to the tent, we met our parents once more. I bet Mother had already seen us hunt through her familiar, and so did Shade and Nephilim, who were inside the tent. Sylphie. You hunted that? My father asked, pretending to be surprised. Incredible, my daughter is so talented, mother said in addition. Of course, just like father, she was also terrible at pretending. You don't have to pretend you're surprised. We know you were following us through your familiar. I could not help but say in response, letting out a sigh. If it were any person, they would feel embarrassed. The two looked at each other's eyes after hearing my words. No. What are you even talking about? Father said in response. Why? Yeah, we would never try to spy on our daughter, mother added, only to stutter near the end. Fine. I decided to just let it be. I know they did that to protect me and because they cared about me. Plus, I'm not particularly annoyed by it. I do know the world is dangerous, so I appreciate that they continue to look after us with so much care. I know you do it because you care about me, so don't worry. In any case, it was fun to hunt monsters on our own. Hopefully, you can let us do it again. I could not help but suggest. The two looked at each other once more. We'll think about it, father told me. You're still too young to hunt every day, though, mother could not help but say. But we had our fun, right, Aquarina? I asked, looking at Aquarina. It was a bit scary, and my heart was beating fast. But yeah, it was fun, Aquarina replied, nodding in agreement with me. For Aquarina's case, that's up for her parents to decide, father said. Now let's head inside. Should we butcher your prey? I can make some nice stew and grilled meat with them, mother asked. Yay. All right. Naturally, I agreed to it. Meat. Aquarina exclaimed with glee as she began to drool. For some reason, Amazons had a great obsession with eating meat. I don't know if it's genetic or not, but Aquarina, at her young age, was already in love with it. The feast of dragon meat the other day was mostly eaten by her. As we entered the tent, we were greeted by Shade and Nephilim, who praised our hunt as well. Incredible work, you two, Shade told us. Aquarina, did you defeat that big cat? Nephilim asked. I did. But Sylphie helped as well. She used her grass to wrap around the monster's limbs, Aquarina replied while nodding. Ooh, she can do that already? Nephilim asked once more. I can, but back then, I would get too tired. It's all thanks to my spirit that I can get that far, I said, only to mutter inwardly, well, there's also my endless mana, but I shouldn't talk about it. After that, I showed them Naturia, with both of them showing great surprise at the fist-sized, green-colored seed as it floated around cutely. I didn't see that before. Since when? Nephilim asked. He. Sylphie got her own spirit after raising her Eden apple tree. The apple tree mutated into a magical tree and created a spirit that made a contract with her, mother explained to her. That's insane. So, she did it thanks to her nature magic. But even then, it must be because she's half-elf too, isn't she? Nephilim asked once more. Must be. She must have inherited Phelan's talent with spirits and nature. Her lineage is of the royal elves, after all. Even as a half-elf, her elven blood is strong enough that she's almost a pure elf even with human blood, Shade said in response. Fu. I don't want to say that elves are superior, but we are. My mother said all of a sudden. For some apparent reason, she made it seem like elves were superior to humans. Of course, I didn't like that, but there wasn't much I could do about it. Oi. Don't get too cocky. The Amazon bloodline is also great. Aquarina is still growing up, but she'll punch mountains when she reaches her adulthood. Nephilim said in response to mother's boastful words. You're exaggerating it. Not even you could do that when we first met, Shade could not help but say. Don't sell me out like that. Am I not your wife? Nephilim replied to her husband's words with a pout. You are. And because you're my wife, I know you the best," said Shade, nodding in response to her words. In any case, the two were honestly a fun couple. Chapter 40. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Time passes way too quickly when you're a baby. Time quickly went by and well, 3 years have passed since then. I had just celebrated my 4th birthday, and well, quite surprisingly, not much has happened since the first week I went to see Aquarina. The attacks from Demon King remnants stopped during those 3 years. Also, aside from wild beasts or monsters sometimes coming near the house, there hasn't been any large threats. All in all, I've been living a pretty peaceful life as a baby. Of course, this baby likes to work extra hard, so I've also been trying my best to grow stronger as much as I could. If you think about it, practicing magic and doing exercises for 3 years is a lot. Or is it? Well, I mean, I've grown stronger than before, that's true. But even then, I can't really become overpowered by just getting 3 years older. I can start seeing some more strength as I mature into my teens and adulthood, but for that, I'll have to wait for a long while. Nevertheless, I've been practicing mana usage religiously as much as I possibly could each day. On top of that, I have also been nourishing my mana veins that I had awakened by touching the spirit stone during all this time. Surprisingly, it helped out in strengthening my baby body. It seems that I can apparently enhance my physical capabilities as long as I infuse mana into my mana veins. Well, if I were to be more specific, it enhances my metabolism, muscle flexibility, blood flow speed, mental acuity, breathing, senses, and so much. I can also increase my stamina if I infuse mana into my mana veins, basically extending the time I have before I collapse in exhaustion. Then again, having endless mana is a pain in itself. If I infuse too much mana into my mana veins, they begin to hurt a lot. With that in mind, if I don't properly control the flow to be small and make it move like a raging river, my mana veins might even burst. Worst case scenario, I might even die from it as my body explodes, like a balloon that has too much air in it. I might have infinite mana, but can a body take infinite energy? Naturally, there's a limit. Due to this, I'll always get tired when I overuse it, and if I keep pushing myself, I might end up killing myself. Wait a minute. I also have infinite health, right? But now that I think about it, it might not work as I'd imagine it. I don't think I have enough regeneration to be able to burst myself into pieces and be okay with it. Even if I survive the explosion, I'll stay in the form of chunks and horrify my parents, which I don't want to. Maybe I'll be able to heal to my previous state after blowing up into chunks. In any case, that's something I'll think about for later. For now, I don't want that, thank you very much. Moving the talk of regeneration aside, I can still abuse the fact that I have infinite health. If I use my infinite health to enhance my resistance to this pain that appears when I overexert my mana veins, it might be possible to extend the time I can go all out through the enhancement of my body. Unfortunately, I could only last in that state for around half an hour before I collapse. After that, I'd require at least 4 to 6 hours of resting before even trying to use mana again. Of course, if I could form a contract with some more familiars, it would be possible for me to improve my soul stamina and even my body's stamina to even higher levels. Sadly, as of now, even after 3 years, I haven't gotten any luck and haven't found any spirit that wanted to be my friend, only Naturia. Of course, Yggdra has been getting bigger and bigger, but she has been mostly sleeping. Though, I do have hopes that she might create a new spirit someday. The only thing she has made so far are delicious apples which I eat every day. Oh right, I thought about mass-producing magic trees by growing more Eden apples, but my parents stopped me. They told me I would be insulting nature if I overused my ability. My mother, as an elf, was pretty religious over not abusing my nature magic to oversaturate the place with overpowered magic trees and farm spirits out of them. I mean, I get it, fine. But when I'm free from their grasp and explore the world, I'll go planting whatever and wherever I want. I'll become the hope of the world as I plant delicious magic fruit and vegetables all throughout the world. Oh, that actually sounds like a fun way to travel the world, I guess. But I also want to be an adventurer, if possible. Anyways, I've also been practicing my fire magic all these years, improving the speed in which I can conjure ember rapidly. Now, I can easily conjure it over 100 times in just some seconds, enough to form the basic spells such as Fire Whip, Fireball, and Firewall. I've been forming a system out of my own magic abilities. 100 embers make up these basic fire spells that I can use, but there are also advanced spells that take way more embers. There's Flame Vortex, a spiraling storm of flames that cover a wide area, which requires a whopping 500 embers. This one usually takes a long time to conjure. Without someone covering my back in a life-or-death battle, I wouldn't be able to properly conjure it. After all, the stronger beings get, the faster they come. But of course, there's more. There are spells I've made such as Flame Burst, an enormous explosion of flames that can even take down wild boar emperors, massive 5-meter tall boars, in a single hit. However, these take a minute to conjure as I require over 1,000 embers to form them. Naturally, there are also spells that are in between those amounts, such as Fire Spear, Fire Blade, and Fire Arrow, which range from 200 to 500 embers. However, since then, I haven't been able to enhance the power of my spells as much. This is due to a factor my mother has revealed to me in my 4th birthday. I suppose it's finally time to introduce you to the world of magicians and sorcerers, Sylphie. It's time for you to finally open up your magic circle,